Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 235, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So let's get started. I have 17 comics this week, which is a little lower than I usually have, maybe like 3 books lower. But let's get started. What was my least favorite book of this week? And that was Invincible Iron Man issue 598. So we are getting closer to the ending of Brian Michael Bendis' run on Iron Man, and every issue just seems like a new stall for this book. I just feel like not all of Bendis' passions in this story. And you really feel it with this issue where it's just like, alright, we gotta search for Tony, we gotta search for Tony, and you just don't see Tony at all. Again, it just feels such like a filler just to get to that last part. So for me, I gave this one 2 stars. Artwork is still good for this book, but just not really feeling the story. So moving on to number 16, which is Hit Girl, issue 2, a book I've been really disappointed with, but I've just been picking up because I have all the Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass related books, so I've been trying to keep with these, but yeah, I just feel like there's no story here. I don't know what the purpose of having another Hit Girl volume is, besides, alright, yeah, she has a new partner, but I'm not feeling connected to this partner at all. I just want a stronger plot line here. And also just not a fan of the artwork at all. Just don't really like this style. I know that we're going to get a change of artists with different arcs, so I hope that will help a bit more. But even the coloring I'm not a big fan of. I think it clashes a lot. So I'm going to give this one 2 stars, and that is number 16. Now moving on to number 15, which is Raven, Daughter of the Darkness, issue 3, which I'm just not loving the villain in this book, and we focus a lot on him for this story, but where it gets more interesting is where Raven returns to, I guess, her world and comes face to face with her mother. And I thought that was an interesting story, and I hope that the storyline kind of picks up. I just feel like this doesn't need to be a 12-issue miniseries. That's a big part here. And the artwork fits the tone of this book pretty well. There's some, I guess, proportions that look weird just because I don't love Raven's costume here. But overall, I'm gonna give this 2.5 stars. So that is number 15 for me. Alright, moving on to number 14, which is Jessica Jones, issue 18, which is the last issue of Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos' run on Jessica Jones. So you get a little tease in the end of this issue. Of course, we are getting more Jessica Jones, which I'm excited to see who the creative team is. You get a little art piece, so you can kind of make a guess if you know which artist that is. But yeah, what I thought about this issue, it's just kind of a plain old Jessica Jones issue. We get to see this woman comes in, you know, Jessica needs money, of course, and she needs a gig, and her lover is Armadillo, and they connected to other Bendis creations like Miles Morales. We see, I believe, Ironheart in this issue a couple of times. So it just kind of feels like, oh, Bendis wanted to add these characters in the end, and that's it. It didn't feel like a goodbye to me, and I wanted that. I wanted to feel more emotion, but instead it kind of felt like a throwaway one-shot issue that I probably won't remember. So that's why I gave this 2.5 stars. I was just disappointed as a finale of Bendis' run on this great character. So I'm giving that one 2.5 stars. If this was a one-shot in between story arcs, I would have felt a little bit better about it. Alright, moving on to number 13, which is Wonder Woman issue 43. This continues the same arc we've been getting for a while, which is Wonder Woman vs. Darkseid. The stuff I did like is Steve and Jason's discussion here about Wonder Woman. I enjoyed that. And Wonder Woman just having a discussion with Darkseid's army, you know, the Furies. I thought that was a fun scene. But other than that, I'm still kind of tired of the full Darkseid story. I feel like this should have been done ages ago, so I wasn't really excited about the cliffhanger or really the rest of the plot here besides the small character moments. Even the artwork, I mean, it's definitely solid work here, but I've seen better for this book. I've definitely seen stronger artwork just because there's been some great artwork in Wonder Woman lately. But yeah, overall I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Just not feeling a Darkseid story anymore. Alright, so we are moving on to number 12. And this book usually is a bit higher for me, but it made lower for me. this week, and that is Hack and Slash Resurrection issue 6. So Hack and Slash, I've been really enjoying. I liked the whole camping story. I love her voice. But here, I was a little conflicted with Cassie. I didn't know how to feel about the whole girlfriend story, that she breaks up with her, and they pretty much didn't even seem like they ended up liking each other, and I wanted more drama than that. It just kind of felt really quick and rushed. It's like, oh, I didn't have feelings for you anyways, and you killed my mom, you know? I just wanted more emotion there. I mean, obviously they tried in this issue, but I wanted more than one issue to kind of discuss this. And I like the whole camping setting, so now it's just gonna kind of go back to, you know, what Cassie's been about, on the road fighting monsters. But I like that this was kind of different, and I hope the next coming story arcs will feel different from the other Hack and Slash stories. So for me, I was a bit disappointed with this one, especially just the way they dealt with the relationship. And also the artwork it hasn't been my favorite aspect, but I do see improvements of the book. I think the proportions have been a little bit better for the book. But I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Alright, moving on to number 11, which I dropped the index card, but what it is Avengers issue 686. So, Avengers, I thought this was one of the better issues here. I enjoyed Hulk beating on Wonder Man and then him smashing the pyramid. So I like that. I mean, I enjoyed this as an action issue. It's still definitely not one of my favorite events by any means. I think it's really slow, but I did like some of the action moments here. I won't say character moments, but the action moments that were cool. Especially, finally, in the end, we get some more plot progression. Alright, and also the artwork was really good for this book, which is why the action stuff was good here. Alright, moving on to number 10, which is Detective Comics, issue 977, kind of back into the middle group here, and which is weird, because I really liked the opening of this book, and I said, oh my god, this is going to be like top 5 book, and then it kind of slows down as we get to the present, and then, you know, Tim working with Ulysses, and I guess, you know, moving the pieces to get to this Batwoman-Tim war. But I just wanted the war, you know. I saw that the future flash forward, and that was more interesting than the actual plot going on. So it was a bit more of a slower burn. Also, there were 2 artists. I thought the artist for that flash forward was stronger than the artist towards the end of the issue. I think the artist nailed emotions a bit better there than for the ending here. Especially when there was a lot of characters on screen. You just didn't get that emotional punch like that, the beginning scene in this book. So overall, I gave this one, I think, 3.5 stars. Or maybe it was 3. I think it was 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 stars. Just wasn't as great as the other ones, but I really liked the opener for this book especially, which is why I made it to the 3.5. Alright, moving on to number 9. Which is Breathless, issue 1, which is a new book from Pat Chan and Black Mask. And I really like the characters here. That's one thing I think Pat Chan really allowed me to hook onto the characters. I liked our lead, and also her friend, and they work at this kind of like monster clinic, and they're doctors that dissect these monsters. And the issue opens up with her getting an inhaler, and you know, she has asthma, and then this thing happens at work where the alien blood goes into her and she doesn't have asthma anymore. I'm sure some mystical thing will happen as the series continues, but I don't know how to feel about the world yet or the inhaler portion of the story, but I do like the characters, like I said. I like their voices, so I gave this one 3.5 stars. Also like the art style. I enjoyed that art style. I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of. It reminds me of an Image book, but I can't put my finger on what the style reminds me of. But anyways, given this 3.5 stars, artwork's good, and gives you definitely a solid enough story here to want to pick up the second issue. Alright, moving on to number 8, a bit lower than usual, and that is Doomsday Clock issue 4. And this is after the bi-monthly break we had here, so we haven't had Doomsday Clock in 2 months, and it kind of does ruin the flow of the book a bit. I've seen a lot of those complaints on Twitter as well for other people. It breaks it apart a bit. It breaks the hype up, and that's disappointing, but at least we're getting a good product here. I mean, Gary Frank's artwork is just so good in this book, and the beats that Jeff Johns hits, it's just so memorizing, really. And then you get that ending there with the fly. It's just those slight details that, you know, brings you back to the first time you read Watchmen, which is exactly what you should have with Doomsday Clock. But this is focusing on the secret origin story of the new Rorschach, and I feel like we didn't need a whole issue of that. There's definitely some slower moments in this issue, but my favorite actually was Mothman, you know, how they, or Killer Moth, sorry, and how they added him to the story. I like their interactions, but everything else, I just felt like this could have been told in lesser pages than it was, but then it is kind of like a throwback to how Watchmen was set up as a series, so I definitely understand why it took this whole issue. Kind of reminds me of like that Dr. Manhattan issue where we kind of learn his secret origins, but which is my favorite issue of Watchmen, but yeah, I wasn't feeling this one as much, so I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Definitely not bad, just like the other 3 issues a bit more. Alright, moving on to number 7. This one's, I think, higher than I've ever had this series, and that's Dark Knight Metal issue 6. Still not exactly my tone that I like. I didn't really love the battle that was going on in the beginning, which is like the essence of the story, the actual metal aspect, but I like the music metal aspect of this book and how, more than any of the issues, that's injected here. And just the funness of the ending of pretty much the Justice League coming together and then having a Bat Party. This is like one of my favorite panels. I love that. All the Bat family hanging out and just rocking. You got Alfred on the drums. I had a lot of fun with that. And then, of course, just leading into what they're going to be doing with Justice League. I thought that was a really nice page. And just artwork in general is so good. But I will say some of the story feels cluttered, especially in the middle. There's a lot going on, and that's the part I didn't like, which is why it's not in my top 5, but there's a lot of small moments I really enjoy, especially as like a music fan. Like Wonder Woman's moment where she's like kind of does the drums except with her wristbands, or you know, with her her wristbands. Here we go. So that was really cool, and with Hawkgirl's thing. I thought that was an awesome panel there. So those small moments is what I really liked about Dark Knight's Metal. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that was number 7, I believe. Yes. Moving on to number 6, which is Black Magick issue 11. I didn't know how to feel about this issue, actually. I mean, I love the artwork. So good. The grayscale. It's just, every single time you open this book, it's just so exciting to see Nicola Scott's art. And then the little small notes of color. Some of the best artwork on stands right now. But the thing I didn't know how to feel is one of my favorite aspects is Rowan's relationship with her partner, her police detective partner, and they end up breaking up their relationship because there's a spell put on that maybe Rowan has feelings for him, and now her partner knows about this, it seems like, and if you don't know, her partner is married and has a kid, so I don't know how to feel about that drama, just because I really liked that they didn't have any romance between them, and that's kind of what I really enjoyed about their friendship, and which was refreshing for a police type procedural book here. I like that. You know, it's definitely something different from, like, even if you look at TV shows like Castle and all the other procedural cop shows you have, they always fall in love in the end. So I didn't know how to feel about that note, but it definitely adds to some drama, and you get excited to see where it's gonna go and where the relationship heads. So I gave this 4 stars. So that was number 6 for me. Alright, moving on to number 5. Which is Saga, issue 50, the monumental issue 50, anniversary issue here. Which I really like how meta this book is. When Hazel is doing her usual monologue, she mentions, you know, her parents don't really celebrate anniversaries as much because of the way they live, and I enjoyed that meta conversation a couple of times, and you know how you have a moment in life and you don't know you have to cherish it until years later, that it was going to be a monumental moment. Also, I mean, I like the structure of this issue a lot. I won't show it because there's some not safe for work moments here, but the opener of this book, it's like exactly, you know, the reason why Saga sold so well was you know, sex sells and the way they did sex scenes in this book. So it was interesting to see that that was exactly the opener, and it was just so Saga, and it works for an issue 50 of Saga, and you see a lot of those type of moments of like, oh, that's why Saga is so popular, and that's why Saga is such a good story. And I really think they hit on those notes without making it, let's remember everything about Saga, and not actually provide a new story. Instead, it's like, no, this is a new chapter of the book, but we're not forgetting what made us popular and, you know, what made us a good story. So I enjoyed that aspect, and Fiona Staples' artwork is so good and just matches so well with Brian K. Vaughan's story here. So I'm going to give this one a solid 4 stars, and that is number 5. So moving on to number 4, which is Mera, Queen of Atlantis, issue 2. Honestly, this would have been maybe number 3 if it actually had more Mera in it. It definitely felt like it was more Ocean Master story than Mera, but I really like their dynamic, especially them showing, hey, we've grown as people, we are different people than who we were, but that doesn't mean that we won't have drama between each other, and I enjoyed their fight, especially because Mera was weak in this story, so the action was really good, story was really good. Again, just kind of wish it was more Mera's story, because this is her miniseries, and she doesn't get enough time to shine as it is. And also the way the dialogue was, it's very much, I don't know, it felt like it had to over-explain a lot of times, so that kind of took me out of it a little bit as well. But it is very new reader friendly if you've never known anything about Aquaman, which is great. And the artwork is so gorgeous. I really like all the artwork here. Just the way they do the water, which obviously is very important, the powers, but also the facial expressions for, you know, more emotional issue as we see Ocean Master and Mera fight. And I like that last page where the family of Ocean Master comes in, and that's been a big part of this arc. So I'm going to give this 4 stars. I enjoyed this one. Moving on to number 3. Glad to see this so high. It hasn't been. I think this is my favorite issue of the series so far, and that is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 302. And I just really like kind of the throwback here of old school Spider-Man, but still mixing in some new school elements. Like, now that the past has changed a bit, Norman Osborn's becoming even more evil quicker than he did in the past, and we see in the end, because of these events and that Peter is in this time period, Norman has not kidnapped, but has tied up Aunt May and Spider-Man of this time. And then I even like the opener. We get Jessica Jones getting a little cameo there, because if you don't know, Jessica did go to high school with Peter and had a crush on him. So that was cool, little throwback there as well. And then you have Flash and Liz in the scene, and then older Peter, our Peter, saying, yeah, you guys become best friends, don't worry about it. But then you have Flash, you know, get that gut punch by saying, oh yeah, Peter loses a lot of uncles. He goes through a lot of uncles. I was like, whoa, that was a gut punch. So that really got me into the story. I mean, even this artwork is just so good and just fits so well for this, again, throwback tone. And then you even get some more interesting story with Teresa, where we find out, or at least it looks like, that she actually is the daughter of Peter's parents. So we'll see how that plays out. Is she actually the sister? Is this definitely evidence that she's the sister? We'll have to see. So I enjoyed this one. I gave this 4 stars, and I think this is the best issue of the series so far. Moving on to number 2, which is Batgirl, issue 21. And as a Batgirl fan, I just had a lot of fun with this. It was her and her father teaming up to try to figure out why this monster has put, like, women into their goo. I don't even know how to explain it, but this is the scene. Let me see if I can find it. And what's going on there? Like, what is this monster? And we find out it has to do with, like, this biochemistry thing, and James and Batgirl are able to figure it out. And it's just a cool daddy-daughter team up there, and especially because Barbara knows that's her father, obviously, and he does not know that his daughter is Batgirl. We'll see, maybe there might be clues that Detective Gordon could figure out in the future that, yes, his daughter is Batgirl, but we'll have to see. But overall, it was just a really fun one-shot, especially because I feel like these two don't get to team up as much as they should. So I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Also, really solid artwork throughout as well. So that was number 2. Moving on to my pick of the week, which I did in-depth review for today, and that is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 25, the start of Shattered Grid. I won't go too much into detail just because I did do an in-depth review if you want to check that out, but I enjoyed this a lot, especially the last scene where we get to see the big moment with Tommy, and you can understand why Kimberly becomes the Ranger Slayer after that. I'm so excited to see a wounded Kimberly. She's gone through stuff, and I think this is definitely that starting moment of how we get to see that Kimberly. I also liked references of Matt from Go-Go, so we're seeing those connections. We got to see Jen from Time Force, so we're already starting the actual Shattered Grid moments. The reason I couldn't go 5 stars, though, is there is some exposition here. There's a good amount of exposition for this issue, but when this issue shines, it totally shines. And the artwork here, the art is from Power Rangers Pink, and also that 1960s First Ranger arc, or one-shot. Just so beautiful. Really like how he does the Ranger action, like this this morphing into Lord Draken, even when Kimberly gets into action as the Pink Ranger and how quick that is. Really love that. So great artwork, really great choices for artists here. So I thought this was a really great start. I gave that 4.5 stars, and that's my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page for Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later.